We are continuing the 5th chapter of the 4th act of the journey home. May this reading relax your mind and awaken your heart. Let's dive right into it, shall we? On another such moonlit night, as the night birds crooned in the temple garden, Swami Bon Maharaja, sitting back on his wooden chair, gazed at me intently. "I have been carefully examining you, Richard." He paused to prepare me for what was to come. "Tonight I would like to initiate you as my disciple." He held up a string of prayer beads carved from the wood of tulasi. "I have sanctified these for you. Are you willing to accept?" A chilly breeze whisked across the courtyard. My mind swung between gratitude and pain. I was honored to be asked by him, yet I dreaded the thought of disappointing him. I couldn't accept without sufficient conviction. "I am indebted to you," I replied in a frail voice, "for all the inspiration you've showered on me. But I have vowed not to accept an initiation from any guru until I have confidence that I will remain faithful throughout my life. I believe it would be an act of disrespect toward your holiness for me to make such a commitment without appropriate sincerity." Tears welled in Bon Maharaja's eyes as he patted my head and spoke. "I'm pleased by your sincerity. I will put no pressure on you. You must follow your heart. The members of the ashram would like to call you by a spiritual name. So if you permit me, I'll give you a name. Not an initiation name, but an affectionate name. You may use this name until you decide to accept initiation." I nodded in agreement. "We'll call you Ratin Krishna Das." Ratin Krishna means Krishna, who is the charioteer of Arjuna, and Das means you are his servant. I bowed my head in gratitude. "There is one problem." His eyes narrowed. "Everyone is complaining about your long, unkempt hair. Why don't you shave your head like the other ashramites?" I pleaded. To me, shaving the head represents surrendering to a mentor. Until that decision is made, I will not do it superficially. "Then will you at least cut it shorter? Our guests do not appreciate it." "If it pleases you, Maharaj, I will cut it shorter." My desire to please him overshadowed any other concerns. That night, out of curiosity, I looked into a mirror. It had been a long time since I had last seen my reflection, or used a comb for that matter. Hanging halfway to my waist, my mane was quite matted. The next morning, Bon Maharaja instructed Asim, "Bring our Ratin Krishna Das to the barber." Asim chuckled while leading me toward the barber shop, a warped and rotting wooden shack hardly big enough for 4 people to sit in. As I took my seat on a heavy wooden chair, the barber gawked at my matted locks. He was a skinny little man in his mid-50s, bare-chested, and wore only a checkered cotton cloth around his waist that extended just above his knees. "How to cut such hair?" he muttered. He desperately attempted with every variety of scissors he had, but none could penetrate. Finally, he called an open-air conference in the lane with other local barbers. "How to cut such hair?" They repeated again and again. After much deliberation, they decided to call for a gardener. The gardener arrived, a muscular, heavy-set man with a thick black mustache, wearing loose cotton clothes soiled with a mixture of dirt and sweat. He evaluated my head for some time, then left for his storehouse to fetch the proper equipment. He returned with a rusted set of loppers used for cutting bushes. The tool was shaped like a gigantic pair of scissors. He really brought out shears. My haircut was becoming an elaborate project, and the gardener, the self-acclaimed foreman of the site, pointing his stubby finger, which was caked with dirt under his uncut nails, he dictated orders. "Grab his hair and pull it backward," he said to his assistant. "Pull harder, harder. Yes, now hold as tight as you can." Canvassing a passerby, he instructed, "You, hold this sadhu down on the chair and don't let him move." Then he ordered the barber, "You, grab the bottom of the cutter with both hands and push up. I'll push the top of the cutter down." With great seriousness, the 4 men assembled, each in his strategic position. The gardener and the barber strained, groaned, and perspired, using all their body weight as they pushed the cutter from both directions. Dozens of passersby stopped to gawk at the spectacle. A few more even joined in the effort, each one pushing their weight into the bush cutter. Whatever came of this one big cut would be my new hairstyle. There would be no second cut. Everyone in the crew was moaning and sweating in the struggle to penetrate my hair. Little by little, I felt blades biting into my locks as hundreds of hairs snapped out from my scalp. The whole while, my friend Asim laughed so hard that tears streamed down his cheeks. Finally, after a very long few minutes of pushing and tugging, the 2 blades of the bush cutter snapped together. It was done. Strewn on the floor like trash was my precious hair. It had once represented my revolt against war, prejudice, and the superficialities of society, all my ideals that I held sacred. Now the barbers trampled it beneath their sandals with no mind. What little remained on my head hung to just below my neck. It was perhaps the sloppiest haircut in modern history, but it was done. The gardener and the barber proudly held up a mirror. "It is complete. Please see, please see." With joined palms, I thanked them, but I preferred not to see. Back at the ashram gate, 2 interesting Americans appeared. One was David, a sincere and intelligent man who had recently acted as a personal secretary and friend of Alan Watts, the famous author of books that blended Eastern mysticism and Western logic. David and I instantly bonded and shared many hours of soul-searching conversation. David, like Asim, spoke from his heart and was an excellent listener. One day, 5 of Bon Maharaj's prominent disciples arrived from East Bengal. Their leader, Jagannath, served as both the principal of a school and the head of his town. He was tall, well-groomed, and walked with the poise of total confidence. Yet he was humble and respectful to all. Although he was older than my father, we became close friends. One morning, Jagannath and his companion saw David with a camera in hand. "Sir, please take our group photo," one said, while they all posed in front of the temple. David turned to me and whispered, "There's only one more shot in the film. It's my last roll. I was saving this shot for something special. What should I do? They're posing." We decided to pretend to take their photo by imitating a clicking sound as they posed. Oh my god. Then, without thinking twice about this deception, we went about our duties. The next day, I was taken aback to see Jagannath standing alone, silently crying. "Why is he in such distress?" I asked his friend. He sizzled me with his stare. "Because of what you did." "What did I do?" I replied, bewildered. "Yesterday you pretended to take our photograph while we posed. This was duplicitous. Shame on you for insulting us." I darted over to where Jagannath stood and begged for forgiveness, but he said nothing. The next day, again I pleaded for him to excuse my foolishness. He fixed my eyes in his sad stare. "You are a devotee of Krishna," he said. "How could you treat another human being with such indignity? Don't you know Lord Chaitanya taught us to be humble like a blade of grass and offer all respects to others? Duplicity is a terrible disease." Tears welled in his eyes as he turned his head away from me. One second. Figaro. Almost there. I could tell I was about to lose my voice. Figaro. Okay, good enough. We'll continue from there. Thank you for your patience. Gazing skyward, he said, "I trusted you as a devotee, but you have disappointed my expectations. Therefore I cry. I cry for you, my friend, because you know so little." A real devotee would never treat anyone so cheaply. Then he embraced me and walked away. Passing to the riverbank, ashamed of my insensitivity, I tried to make sense of all this. In ordinary society, I reflected, such an insignificant transgression would be hardly noticed, but in a devotional culture, soft-heartedness and integrity are held sacred. What really is the culture of devotion? It is so very subtle, but it fertilizes the field of the heart so that the seed of true love may grow. I had passed more than 2 months in the pleasant company of Asim, Krishnadas Babaji, and Bon Maharaja. Bon Maharaja never pressed me to initiate. However, there was one monk at the ashram who could not tolerate that I had refused initiation. One day he called me to his room with scorn written on his face, preached fire and brimstone. "Look at you," he chastised. "You gave up material life to live as an ascetic, but until you take initiation from a guru, you have no spiritual life." His eyes narrowed to slits and his voice quivered. "Do you know what happens to one who dies not having either spiritual or material life?" I looked at him in silence. "Do you know?" "No," I replied timidly. He sprung up from his seat and pointed his finger to my face. "He becomes a ghost. I'm talking about you. You're living as a ghost. If uncertain death comes, you will suffer miserably for thousands of years, wandering like a ghost." He stared at me. "Why do you take our Guru's mercy so cheaply? You must surrender or leave." Saddened, I looked down to the floor and replied, "I'm sorry. I will go." Walking out his door, I gathered up my cloth bag and begging bowl and proceeded to leave the ashram. On the way out, I noticed Bon Maharaja sitting in the courtyard, so I prostrated myself at his feet and asked for his blessings to leave. His eyes shot open with surprise to hear my words. "Why are you leaving us?" "Maharaja, I wish not to offend you." I went on to paraphrase the sermon I had just heard. His expression soured with disgust. "Who has spoken this nonsense?" he asked. I informed him. Then, with the tenderness of a loving father, he spoke these words. "I never thought such things about you. You are a sincere devotee. I love you like my son. You have not offended me. Rather, you bring me joy. I welcome you to stay here as long as you wish. I assure you, there will never be such pressure again." I was grateful for Bon Maharaja, for his kindness specifically. Still, considering this episode, I felt it was time to move on. I did not wish to disrupt his disciples' minds. After all, I was still searching, and residence in the ashram was for dedicated disciples. In respect for the affection and wisdom Swami Bon Maharaja always showered upon me, I remained a few more days. Then, receiving his blessings, I departed for the forests of Vrindavan. Thank you for listening. Now we have concluded the 5th chapter of the 4th act of the journey home. If that inspired any insights, questions, or inquiries, I'd be happy to explore them with you. And I look forward to continuing our reading next time.